Join me as we talk about Trump's speech from last night. It was long, but it had a lot of great information in it. Why aren't the Democrats standing when a kid gets an award? Mineral rights and the VA healthcare system. Stick around. You just might learn something. And welcome to the Eric T conversation. I'm Eric T. Well, we had a big speech by Trump last night. It was pretty good. I have to admit, I am not a fan of Trump's speeches. I'm just not. I'm a huge fan of Trump and how he negotiates and how he runs the country and things like that and his policies. But I'm just not a fan of him speaking. He's not a great orator. Now, he cracks some jokes here and there, and his speeches are long-winded. But last night was probably the best speech he's ever given, in my opinion. He talked about everything he's done in 45 days and the vision moving forward. A lot of things were covered in that speech, and I've covered them a lot on this podcast. I've covered the Social Security checks that are going out to people who are 350 years old. Yes, everybody arguing with me about that program that deciphers the Social Security numbers and how the coding is put into the computer. I understand that, but these are facts. These aren't going to people who are 200 or 350 years old. It's not an error in the computer system. These checks are actually going to people. And obviously, they're not 350 years old, but they're going to somebody. Somebody's cashing their check, and they're going to find out where these checks are going. He brought that up last night. So if you're getting a check from somebody who's been dead for a very long time, you better look out because they're going to be coming for you to get that money. That's the waste and the fraud that we are witnessing that Doge is finding. Talked about everything. Talked about things that he's doing now, things that he's doing in the future, and a couple of things that I noticed during that whole speech. The Democrats didn't stand up for anything. Now, I know this is kind of what everybody does, is they're told, hey, listen, don't stand up for anything, don't clap. But I think it's a little absurd because everything he says in there is hopefully to unite the United States. Now, people are arguing and says, well, it was a very divisive type of speech. He brought up Joe Biden's name a bunch of times. He brought up Pocahontas. That was kind of disrespectful, but I loved it. It was great. But what I'm not understanding is there was nothing in that speech that they could agree with. Nothing. I mean, that little boy, DJ Daniels, that kid that 13 years old, that's been suffering with brain cancer for 5 years. He survived. Wasn't supposed to last a couple of months. All he wants to be is a law enforcement officer, came with his father, had his a police uniform on. And while he was up there, President Trump had the head of the Secret Service come in there and give him an honorary Secret Service credentials. If you didn't lose your emotions on that one, I don't know what's wrong with you. And the whole crowd erupted, screaming his name, except for the left. Everybody on the left was sitting there with their hands in their pockets. You couldn't even cheer for that little young boy. Not once? You didn't think that was a good thing? Or when Trump renamed that National Wildlife Refuge for Joycelyn Nungary. He renamed it of a young lady who was brutally killed by an illegal, named it for her. Her mother was up there. And they couldn't clap and cheer for that. They couldn't even smile. None of them did. They were all on their cell phones. Now, I've seen the Republicans kind of do the same thing, but I have never seen it to that extent. The most ironic thing I saw throughout that whole thing is you have a bunch of congresswomen and they're dressed in pink for solidarity for women. But yet every single one of them voted no to prevent men from competing in women's sports. Every single one of them. But they're wearing pink in solidarity for women. That's irony right front and center of the United States. A couple of things that he also said. He brought up Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's our HHS secretary. And he said he's got a lot on his hands. Okay. They're trying to figure out why 1 in 30 kids are born with autism when, 40 years ago, it was 1 in 10,000. So he's got quite a task ahead of him to find out that. When he brought him up, half the crowd was cheering for him, and the left, the Democrats, wouldn't cheer for him. And something funny that Trump said was you would think with a name like Kennedy, this side would be up cheering for you, but they're not. That's how evil and resentful they're making themselves look. It's It's a pathetic look that they are putting out to the American people. A poll came out after the speech. About 73% of the United States approved of that speech. It was a huge, momentous occasion. It was the longest speech apparently on record. Now, I don't know if you go back to 1820 and you find out if anybody gave a speech that long back then, but in the times that we've been recording speeches, that was the longest speech, and I was captivated almost the entire time watching it. It was stuff that I completely agreed with. Getting rid of government waste, getting the woke policies out of our government, out of our schools, out of our communities, law and order, just one thing after another that he has done right away. One of the things that they try to pass, which I mentioned, was keeping men from competing in women's sports. Now, Congress passed it, and it was split just by parties. No Democrats voted for it. The Republicans voted for it. Then it went to the Senate. No Democrats voted for it, and all the Republicans voted for it. The problem is, in the Senate, you need a supermajority. So you need 60 votes to pass anything in the Senate. There are some reconciliations that you can do here and there to get things through without having a supermajority, but that's a rule that's in place. So even though the Republicans have the majority in the Senate, they couldn't pass that bill. How is that possible that the left is so hell-bent on dying on that hill to allow women to compete with men? I'm sorry. Why do they want to die on that hill by allowing men to compete with women? It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm floored by that policy. They are hell-bent on keeping that around. If you see all the sports that have been in there and men that have competed with women in a women's league, they're dominating in every facet of the sport. Except for this one time, there was a male weightlifter that competed with the women, and he didn't win all the way, but he wasn't a really strong man to begin with. It's not like you were getting someone like Ronnie Coleman in there in his heyday, lifting weights, competing against women. This is almost like an average chubby guy, and he was competing against women who were a little bit stronger than him. That was the only one that I've seen where he didn't make it all the way to first place. But track and field, volleyball, swimming, all the other sports, boxing, we saw that in the Olympics. Biological men are competing with women, and they're crushing them. And they couldn't get past their own prejudices to pass that bill. What does that say, America? Why are you supporting people that are like that? Now, I get it. You want to let people be who they want to be, and that's fine. No one's saying nobody can be what they want to be. But there is a genetic difference between men and women. That's already proven. It's in our DNA, right? But they are hell-bent on letting men compete with women in women's sports. That needs to change. And I hope after that speech, we can get 60 votes next time. A lot of things happened in that speech. A lot of things that I felt that should have been accepted by both parties, both of them. And they just couldn't see their way past it. Now they hate Trump. And the media over the last 8 years has really soured a significant part of our country to despise Donald Trump, no matter what he does. And he even said that in his speech. I could cure cancer and the left would still hate me. And that's true. They are so deranged on what he's doing because he's an outsider. He was an insider, so he knows how the game is played. But he's an outsider as far as politics is concerned. And the problem that they have with him is that he can't be bought. And if you think politicians aren't getting bought, then I got some swampland in South Florida to sell you. Because every politician that gets there gets compromised one way or another. What they find something that you like. They find it, and then they get you with it. And now you're toast. And if you like money, they start getting you money. You start dealing with the lobbyists. The lobbyists get you money. You get money for your PAC so you can run for re-election. And you get so intertwined with all that cash and those funds and start hanging out with the rich and famous. And next thing you know, your beliefs get skewed. And sometimes you even get compromised. So the left hates Donald Trump so much because he's taking stuff away from them, like USAID. I know a judge just said you got to release about $2 billion. That's a far cry from about the $100 billion that they've saved already. And that money goes to organizations that are either non-existent or it's not even, doesn't even make sense that it's going to them. We've talked about it before on my podcast. They're giving like 20-something million dollars to Iran for a Sesame Street show. That's insane. These are the types of expenditures that DOGE is finding, and we need to reel in for our country, because we can't afford to continue to waste money that we don't have. And it's our taxpayer dollars. There was a lady came out the other day. She does a lot of investigating behind the scenes and found about 90-something% of our tax dollars goes out for projects. It doesn't really go to run our country. It goes to other organizations throughout the world. Our tax dollars aren't even staying here in the United States. And that needs to be fixed. So I thought the speech was great. You know, he almost ended it with President Zelensky wrote him a letter and basically caved after the Friday debacle in the Oval Office. And Zelensky said he's ready to work with Trump's leadership and create some peace. And he's ready to sign the mineral deal. What you don't understand about the mineral deal, this is very important. The United States has a lot of areas where we can get minerals from. The issue is that the environmentalists prevent a lot of that digging for the precious minerals that we need in the United States. Everything's going to need these types of minerals. And I know it's not Elon Musk batteries. All you people out there, all you do is say it's Elon Musk for his batteries. That's why Trump's trying to get the minerals. No, there's a lot of stuff we need minerals for. We need it for defense. We need it for technology. We need it for clean energy. And we in the United States can't get our own minerals. It's a problem. So we have to go outside to get some of these minerals from other countries that don't have such stringent regulation on mining them. So the mining for these minerals is a big deal for our security, for our nation. If you're not paying attention, this world is evolving technologically. It is evolving quickly. We got AI. In about 10 years from now, you're going to have robots operating in your houses. That's how quick technology is moving. A lot of you are using AI right now. Use Grok 3, ChatGPT. A lot of this AI technology is going to be revolutionizing. And we need certain minerals to move that forward. So it's a good deal. And if we have the mineral rights in Ukraine, we have a vested interest, and we will protect Ukraine so those minerals don't fall into the evildoers' hands. So I think that's a great deal. So, of course, Trump, the king of negotiations, and people that know him have said over and over again, he's the best at negotiating than anyone they've ever witnessed. And as I said before on my podcast the other day, he's not going to blink. He's going to tell you what he wants, and you're either going to give him what he needs, or he'll find somewhere else to get it. So as soon as they stop the arms from going to Ukraine and any more funding for that war, within 2 days, not within 24 hours, Zelensky said, we're ready to come back to the table. And that's what happens when you play hardball with the king of negotiations. So the VA secretary, Doug Collins, who comes out every couple of weeks on the actual VA website, and he talks about the changes that the VA is going through. Every time I come on here, people are talking about the VA's getting their benefits cut and all that stuff. The VA system is very near and dear to me. I am a veteran as well. So when I tell you this, I'm telling you this from actual experience. I probably have about 3 or 4 appointments at the VA every single month. I'm in my 50s now. So the older you get, the more appointments you get. I have yet to have any bad experience at the VA. What he's saying is happening is they're cutting waste and extra spending with the VA. Now, a lot of people have lost their jobs, and he's really upset about that. But, the VA isn't here to employ people. The VA is here to serve the veteran, period. Not an employment company. It's a service company to our veterans. And he made that point very clear. And I support that point. So right now they have about 400 and something employees, and they need to get somewhere about 300,000 or so employees. That's roughly about 15% of their staff, all while hiring 300,000 essential workers like doctors, nurses, different medical professionals, people that are on different types of staff positions. So they're cutting waste. They also reviewed about 900,000 government contracts that the VA has with outsources places. By reviewing about 2% of those, they were able to cut $900 million in waste. A lot of those contracts are duplicate contracts doing the same thing with other organizations that the VA had contracts with, right? So when you really put things under a microscope, you start finding a lot of government waste that needs to be trimmed off. So that's only 2% of the 900,000 contracts that they had. Imagine how much money they can save if they reviewed 50% of them, 80% of those contracts. 2%, they save $900 million. So the VA healthcare system is not cutting my benefits, not cutting your benefits, not cutting anybody's benefits. You're still going to get the outstanding medical care that you get right now, and you're going to continue to get that. They're just cutting government spending. So stop listening to the left telling you they're cutting the VA benefits. They are not. They are cutting wasteful spending to help us out. Because what I know that they need more doctors, more nurses, more dental care people, more ophthalmologists. Those are the types of people, more surgeons. These are the people that the VA needs right now. They don't need more people filing. They need to get to a system that is so proficient that I can go on the VA Gov app on my phone and make an appointment with my primary care physician. Right now, you can't do that. Now you got to call, you got to send an email, you got to wait for them to get back to you. I want to be able to go on there, see the date and time for an appointment, and make my own appointment. You don't need 10,000 people answering the phone to make an appointment if you had a very robust digital system that could allow veterans to go online and do that themselves. Now, you're going to need some elderly veterans that don't use mobile phones, but sooner or later, they're going to be gone. And the generations that's like 10 years younger than those guys, which is very soon, they all have smartphones and know how to use them very efficiently. That's the way things are going to be going. By getting rid of some of the wasteful staff that we have and getting better healthcare professionals, doctors and nurses, and getting in a better VA website system that we can make appointments, we could streamline it, save money, and get better healthcare for our veterans. And like I said, I'm in the system. I know all about the VA. By the way, if you have any VA questions about disability or anything like that, please shoot me a DM. I'm really in tune in the VA system, getting, if you're a veteran that's disabled and you need to make a claim, I can give you some pretty good advice on what routes to take with that. I've been through the system. I filed all my stuff myself, and I was able to get the benefits that I needed for myself. So I'm more than happy to help any veteran out there to guide you in the way you need to go to get the disability benefits that you will need as a veteran. Because you know what? You've served this country, and you absolutely deserve all the benefits that are allowed to you. So if you're out there fighting for your benefits, don't stop. You deserve it. That's it for today. Join me next time for a little chit-chat, some observation, as a good old-fashioned conversation. Thanks.